Okay, it is time to talk about pivot tables. So what exactly are pivot tables? Well, before we answer that question, let's ask a broader question, which is why would you use a pivot table in the first place? Well, the answer is you often have a large list of data and you have to answer very complicated questions. Let's start by looking at our list. And here we have a list of our orders, and each line item represents a separate order that we've received. And the details that we track are the order ID, the product category, the product subcategory, the geographic region, the country within that region, the customer source, which is how the person found us, our expenses for that order, the quantity sold, the unit price, sales amount, and profit. And let's say the boss starts asking some questions. For example, what was our average sale per country? Which customer source was the most profitable? What was the total sales of each subcategory broken down by region? You can see these questions become a little complicated to answer. Enter the pivot table. So what exactly is a pivot table? Well, frankly, pivot tables are very hard to describe. It's only when you see them will you understand them. For right now, think of a pivot table as being a display or arrangement of your data. Put another way, with a pivot table, all you do is create various displays of it. If we put our focus on the word pivot, pivot by definition means what? Swivel, twist, rotate, move around, etc. So in a nutshell, a pivot table is a way for you to create an arrangement of your data, and then what you can do is move it around to create a brand new arrangement of your data. Along the way, you can do some really cool calculations, and the complexity of the arrangement is really up to you. Again, when you see it, it will make much more sense. When it comes to creating your pivot table, there are various ways and various schools of thought in which you can create one, and we'll address those methods at the end of this lesson. For right now, let's get going. Step 1 is you want to click inside your list. Step 2, click where it says Insert, and then choose Pivot Table. Here, we'll just accept the defaults and put our pivot table on a new worksheet. Click OK. Now, if you're new to pivot tables, you're probably looking at the left-hand side of the screen. You're better off putting your focus on the right-hand side, where you see this little pane. This pane has two sections. The top section shows you the column headings from your list, otherwise known as field names. And then the most important part is these quadrants right down here. These little 4 quadrants is where all the magic happens. To build your pivot table, all you do is drag the field that you want to see into the quadrant you want. Generally speaking, the fields that you drag into the row and column quadrants are often text-based. Where it says values, the fields you put in there are numerical, or a field you want to do a calculation on. So to start off, let's say the boss wants to see our total sales for each country. So we'll drag the country field down to where it says rows. We'll then drag the sales amount to where it says values. Now, if we look on the left-hand side, behold, a pivot table. So here's all that happened. When we put those fields in those quadrants, Excel went over to our list and found all of our unique countries, and then it looked at the sales amounts for each of those countries, added them up, and showed them to us. Put another way, Excel is showing us our data in the aggregate. For example, all of our UK sales add to this, all of our Scotland sales add to this, all of our Aussie sales add to this, etc. Let's go one step further and say we want to add the product category to our pivot table. To add that field, we can drag it down from our field list. Let's say we put it in our columns quadrant. There we go. And Excel has created a fancy layout of our data by listing our countries in one direction, our categories going in another direction. And for lack of a better term, Excel is showing us our data in a fancy cross-referenced aggregate manner. Put another way, if we look at our table, we can tell we sold $1,500 of dog care products in the Philippines. So why is it called a pivot table? Well, remember, pivot by definition means move around. So if we wanted to, we could create a different arrangement of our data by moving these fields around. So let's say we take our product category and put it over here where it says rows, and we'll put the country in the column quadrant. And all we have done is simply rearranged our data and created a brand new display. And right there is the essence of a pivot table. Let's go up and clear our pivot table by choosing Clear, Clear All. Then we'll give you a homework assignment. At this point, we recommend you pause the video and just take some time to create various combinations of your data. Drag a field down into the row quadrant, drag a field down into the columns quadrant. just to see what you get. Create a couple different combinations, and then when you're ready, come back to join us.